Hi guys, so we'll be kicking off the meeting by introducing ourselves. So my name is Augustina and I'm the co-president of SHAC and co-project manager for THIMBY.
Everyone, I'm Mia. I'm also co-president and co-project manager of the Solar Decathlon team.
I'm Alec. I'm one of the vice presidents and I'm the co-project manager for the Solar Decathlon team.
I'm Garrett. I'm a co-vice president with Alec and a co-project manager for THIMBY.
Hi everyone, I'm Sage. I am the Director of Internal Affairs for SHAC and a member of the engineering team for Solar Decathlon.
Awesome. And if at any point you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or interrupt us, not a big deal. So SHAC is a group of undergraduate and grad students at Berkeley. And we really try to promote sustainability, especially with the intersection between sustainability and the built environment. And so things we promote are behavioral changes around sustainability, thinking about our relationship with the environment, as well as hands-on applications, what you learn in class and applying that to a project. Innovation, energy self-sufficiency, and affordable housing are some of the topics that we cover. SHAC is divided into two projects currently. We're hoping to expand as our team grows. But within SHAC, we have two projects, the THIMBY project and the Solar Decathlon project, which we'll be talking more about. Within SHAC as well, we have three administrative committees: internal affairs, outreach, and media.
So our first project team is the Solar Decathlon. And for those of you not familiar with Solar Decathlon, it is a competition held by the Department of Energy. It's full-sized houses, residential houses, and that a bunch of different teams compete in from different universities. They have competitions in various locations. There's currently one going on in China, which we will talk more about as that is the project we're working on. And there's also US competitions. Decathlon, hence there's 10 different contests. The main ones that we focus on are architecture, market potential, and engineering, and then everything else kind of falls under that. They're listed here, and yeah. So Solar Decathlon has had 3 past, present, future projects at Cal. The past project was the US Solar Decathlon in 2017, which I'll talk more about in a minute. And then we are currently working on the Solar Decathlon China 2021, and hopefully we will be competing in the 2023 US Solar Decathlon as well. So our past project, which was completed in 2017, was an entry into the US competition, and the house was the RISE house, which stands for Residential Inviting Stackable Efficient. And so it aimed to take both the problems with housing in the Bay Area and sustainability and bring those together to make something practical and economically feasible.
And just a little more about that project. Actually, Garrett, could you go back? Well, just a little bit more about the competition itself. Like these houses are actually designed from scratch and built. So like that's an actual picture of the final house, and they focused on a lot of things, just being very conserving in terms of their materials, and didn't like any action. There's kind of no frills, and we have a bunch of different principles for our current project. Garrett, would you cover that one? Yeah. So right now, like Sage said, we're working with a university in China to do the Chinese version of the competition. The Solar Decathlon competition started in the US, but it has since expanded to a bunch of different other countries. And we originally were planning to do the US one, but that one got pushed back because of course, like coronavirus screwed everything up. But it's actually really good for us because this is allowing us to kind of prepare us by working with another team, and before we actually focus on our own project, which will be starting around next year. We'll have full control over that one. But yeah, so a little bit more about the current project. We want to, it's going to be built at the site of the Winter 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. And that's going to be like obviously a very large media event. It's going to be part of the Olympic Village, I believe. And it's going to have guests, and then we're going to do some like post-occupancy research once we finish building it. And we have so thus far come up with a bunch of principles to follow, and we have some initial renderings. So this, like, if you join us, we will be definitely have a lot of say in where the design heads, because the actual construction won't begin until around next summer. Yeah. Next slide. And yes, so again, we are working with the university in China, and since like it's an international competition, I think there's around 15 other schools working on it, and we have a split of responsibility. So on our end, we're mostly focused on, well, both of us are focused on architectural design. We're mainly focused on the electrical end of things. If you're into engineering, like electricity, solar, and like smart control, and then obviously we do want to focus more on the like socio-economic context of the actual place, and then like the culture, and we do like research into that. So yeah.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit more about what we're working on right now. So if you end up joining our team, this is sort of where you'll be jumping in. So we currently have, as Alec mentioned, 3 different sub-teams that are working on the project together. So we have the building science sub-team, which is focused on more engineering side of things, architecture, which of course is more architectural design, and then policy. So just a little bit more detail about that. The building science team is currently doing a lot of research, finding out how to best integrate innovative and sustainable technologies into our home. That has a lot to do with something else Alec mentioned, which was sort of smart technology, how to integrate that, and then also performing case studies and creating evaluations for integrating these specific technologies. The architecture sub-team is working on design. As of now, we are working on a deliverable that we're hoping to finish up in the next couple of weeks. So we're really sort of nailing down our main site design and form, but there's still going to be a lot of flexibility and changes from there. So as was mentioned before, there's a lot of space for you to sort of integrate your ideas into our design. And for policy, we're also working really hard to make sure that our building science and architecture, the work of those sub-teams is well integrated into the context of where we're building, as well as the UN Sustainable Design Goals. Those are really sort of a driving force behind our design. So yeah, can go to the next one. These are just a couple of images of what our renderings and plans look like right now. I think some of these are from actually a few weeks ago, so we've progressed since then, but this is just sort of to give you an idea of what we're thinking, the sort of technologies that we've been looking at integrating, and the overall design, where we're headed with that. Yeah, so as we mentioned as well, we're hoping to compete in the 2023 US Solar Decathlon competition. And if you could see on the timeline on one of the previous slides, it does sort of overlap a little bit with the current project, but since we're not going to be doing as much construction on our end as the competition is in China, we're really gonna be able to start working on that as the other competition is closing. And so for this current project, for the Solar Decathlon China, we did, since we're working with another team, we do have to sort of compromise with them, and they already had a design when we joined, but this project will be starting completely from scratch, and will likely be only our team, so we're going to have complete control over sort of the direction of this project. And it will also be built in the Bay Area, likely in Berkeley, so that'll be very interesting as well.
Similar to Solar Decathlon, THIMBY has been around on campus for the last couple of years. The Solar Decathlon team and THIMBY actually combined to create SHAC last year. So we've had some separate projects when THIMBY was its own club on campus. So Tiny House in My Backyard aims to really construct a very sustainable model to address homelessness and housing insecurity within the Bay Area. Sustainable both applied to an economic perspective and environmental. And so we integrate kind of implementations around water, solar energy, to make these tiny houses off-grid and self-reliant. We've had 3 projects so far, the last one being in progress currently. I'll talk a little bit more about our first and our second project in the next couple of slides. So our first project was called Tiny Living Lab. It was a team of primarily graduate students, graduate and PhD students, who constructed a net zero tiny house to submit to a competition in Sacramento. It won second place in that competition, and it was under kind of like the system of they would live in the tiny house after it was constructed, and ensure that all of the systems and a lot of the technologies were working really well. And so a really great thing is that we have access to all of that information and the team who worked on that tiny house who now lives in that tiny house still. So we now know what worked and what didn't in terms of a lot of the technologies and systems in place. Our second project was called Constance's Bus. Kind of different. It pivoted a little bit towards addressing a lot of the social issues within the Bay Area. So the second team, completely different team, took and retrofitted a bus. It was like a Bluebird bus that a homeless woman had previously. She was a school bus driver, but because of some, I think, physical ailments, she was unable to work. And so she just had this Bluebird lying around. They retrofitted the bus. It drives, but like not really. So they built a home for her and her 2 kids, Miracle and David, who are really sweet. And so our team worked with the Greater Richmond Interfaith Program, which is a homeless shelter in Richmond, and tent makers, which kind of laid the foundation for a lot of the partnerships that we're working with currently. So what's cool in this current project is that we're kind of fusing a lot of the social aspects in addressing like homelessness and housing insecurity within the East Bay, but also using a lot of the technology from our first project.
So I'll speak a little bit about the current project. The current project is aiming, like Augustina said, to build a tiny house in the city of Richmond, where the second and first house were also built. And this one will be housed in the backyard of a pre-selected home in Richmond. And this program is also particularly relevant currently with the onset of COVID-19, as at the moment, overcrowded shelters aren't feasible for proper health practices. A lot of people are being turned down while homelessness rates are also increasing due to the economic downturn. So THIMBY 3.0, our objective is to maximize land use by building ADUs in the backyards of single-family homes. So a lot of the issues with current homelessness solutions is zoning and community support. And so we hope that THIMBY provides sort of an alternative in that regard, as it's more dependent on the individual homeowner's adoption. And so, yeah, this home will be on wheels, and it will serve as transitional housing for either housing insecure or homelessness individuals. And again, it'll be scalable and affordable. So hopefully it's a model that can be adopted and reproduced by our project or by our team and potentially other organizations in the future. So at the moment, similar to Solar Decathlon, we're split into 3 teams: the building, materials and construction team, the engineering team, and the policy team. And we're recruiting for all three, so if any of these are interesting to you, just let us know. So the BMC team, we call it, is currently working on finalizing some architectural drawings and renderings. We're still modifying things until we have to, set a deadline for construction. So if you're into architecture, there'll be still some tweaking that we can do in the coming months. We're also finalizing materials as we determine where we can actually obtain lumber and whatnot. And then in the coming weeks, we hope to have some professionals come in and review our plans and tell us what more that we need, because none of us have really built a house before. So while our personal research can only take us so far. So we're communicating with professionals, and then we'll be outlining a detailed construction process, so that once we get approval and the funding, the complete funding to start constructing, it'll be as seamless of a process as possible. The engineering team recently has been working on electrical and plumbing schematics, kind of layered on top of our building plans. We've been doing a lot of planning with some sponsors and how their systems will be installed. We've also been looking more into the details of our water system design. We're going to have like a greywater filtration system and a recycling shower. So actually planning out the actual plumbing connections and what kind of filters we're going to be using, and our water flow rates and all of that. And then we're also similar, but not as extensive as Solar Decathlon. We want to incorporate some automation to increase energy efficiency and monitor some of the important things like water and air quality that are important when filtering water and in a small space where air quality can rapidly decline due to the lack of ventilation. So, and then our policy sub-team is actively communicating with the city as our plans go through a review process by the city's homelessness task force, and we may receive a substantial portion of our needed funding from them in the coming month. Also, just understanding the building and DMV codes, doing anything that's necessary for communicating with the city for permitting when that happens, and then also just collaborating with nonprofits that may be able to support us in construction or material donation. Yeah, and then we also, if you're interested in business, we really want to assess our current business model and improve some of the practicalities of that in the coming months. And just as a taste of some of the things we've been doing, these are preliminary sort of layouts of, on the top we have our water tank and water filtration system, and then also on the bottom you can see this was provided by our sponsor. It's a layout for the subfloor heating, so you'll be exposed to stuff like this, and then also the SketchUp model on the right, which is our preliminary model for the layout of the home. Yeah, so that's it for THIMBY.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about our committees. So SHAC structure has both the projects and it also has more administrative work, which takes form in the committees. So committee participation is not mandatory, but it is highly recommended, especially for those who are just joining. So you can be in a project and in a committee, you can just be in a project, or you can actually just be in a committee if you're more interested in the administrative side of things. So yeah, it's really an opportunity to develop administrative and organizational skills and get involved with sort of the larger structure of the club. And yeah, I think there is sometimes a little bit of separation between the projects and even in the sub-teams. So by being part of the committees, you really get a sense of what's going on across the organization because you're working for both projects essentially. And then the last is just interacting with other clubs, companies, and professionals. You're definitely doing that as part of the projects, but this is just another sort of extra way to get involved that way. Next slide. Yeah, so this is just a little layout of how it works. So we have 3 committees: internal affairs, outreach, and media. And so they're just like little lists of what each of the committees is responsible for. So internal affairs is doing recruitment, finances, event planning. So whether that's internal events like socials or sort of lecture series, interaction with professionals, that kind of thing. And then legal work, which we're still sort of stepping our feet into. And then outreach, so that's sponsorship. That's really communicating with people that we're trying to get money and donations from, as well as fundraising. And then we have community engagement. So right now that's more on the THIMBY side, but it's also engaging with the Berkeley community itself on campus and outside of it. And then media is sort of what you would expect. It's social media. It's also sort of design. So you see our cool backgrounds right there. That was done by the media committee. Publicity, and yeah, just sort of general graphics. Yeah, and so this is when we meet. Yeah, I think this is finalized for the semester, but our main general meetings are at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays. So that's really a time where we're going to be coming together to talk about both of our projects. We are usually going to sort of split off into each and talk about what we've been working on for the past week and where we need to go. And then the committee meetings are spread across Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, as you can see. So yeah, join us. We would love to have you as part of SHAC. I think most of you should have at least seen our application. So that's sort of the next step after this info session. And then also finding out more information by following us at CalSHAC or looking on our website, which is shac.berkeley.edu. But yeah, I think we can open it up to questions now. That's all right.
Quick side note too, I'm putting a sign-in sheet in the chat. Just make sure to fill that out so we can send you updates and get you the application if you don't have it. You can find it online, but just as another thing.
I just want to also address some of the questions coming in through the chat. So if we answer both projects on the application, are we already committing to the projects? No, because likely you'll probably test run either project. And you can definitely gauge that by speaking with people on either project, because you will have to commit to only one, but you can do that at a later date after your interview.
Yeah, and it's probably not a good idea to join both, because I mean, just one is pretty high commitment. I mean, we're building houses from scratch. Like, it's going to be a lot of work. But yeah. And if we just want to go through the questions, feel free. You can ask in the chat or in person. Either is fine. And Ruji, you asked how would you join? We have an application. It should be, if you can't find it, let us know. But all the information that we're talking about should be on our website, and we will be sending these slides to you guys afterwards, as long as you fill out that form that Sage sent. And you can apply for both projects and committee. Yes, that is part of the application, I believe. And if you're not involved, if you're not enrolled like officially, I think you can still be a part of the club. It is in like it is a school policy that you can't be like a official active member. Like, for example, we can't put you on CalLink, but you're completely welcome to join us and do pretty much everything that a regular member does, I believe. But yeah, and then
I can also send the application directly in the
Okay.
chat as well.
I just posted our recruitment link, and the first button there is our application. So
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so also let me know if I don't answer your questions completely. So you can just like literally paste it, and I'll be like, I'll know that I should talk a little bit more about it. But the general meetings on Wednesdays, that's going to be every week, and just the layout of it, the first like 20-30 minutes will just be everyone just like maybe talking about community updates or like just having fun and getting to know each other maybe for a little bit. The majority of the general meetings will be in breakout rooms with your respective like project teams, and that's when like on Wednesdays is when we get most of our work done and plan for the week, because we do there's a lot of work to do, so there's definitely like tasks that we need to complete over the duration of the week, probably with your sub team. That those schedules are a lot more flexible, but yeah. And then remote work. So yes, everything will be remote. We're not allowed to meet in person, unfortunately, but we everything that we've been doing so far, everything except for construction, we can do remotely. So pretty much, at least for Solar Decathlon, construction won't start until next summer. So everything until then, we will be just doing like simulations, renderings using CAD, doing research and calculations, just like through our meetings and on our own time. And once construction comes about, the students will be playing a role with that. Obviously, some of it requires lots of like safety certifications. So we will be working with construction companies to get like the dirty work done. I think for THIMBY, maybe Augustine or Gary, we could talk a little bit more about that. The plan is probably to do it next semester. We'll see if we can do it this fall or maybe in the beginning of the winter if possible. But due to COVID, like there's lots of spaces that we would usually have access to, like either owned by the school or otherwise. It's just difficult to get access there. So right now it's, I mean, we are able to like contact companies and like obtain materials and all that, but like not any physical construction for like the next months, like 2 months, 3 months at least. So yeah.
I would, sorry, just for THIMBY, yeah, the goal is definitely to build as soon as possible, given funding and approval from campus and city. But I think a likely scenario, assuming that we receive funding within the next month or two, would be that we sort of get things together to as much as possible in terms of like shipping some of the materials that we would need and like storing that somewhere in Berkeley or on the property itself where we would be building it. But yeah, that's going to require collaboration with the university, and we know at the moment we can't do that. So should things change, it's a possibility.
Yeah, just I guess one more thing, just quite literally about what we're doing in our meetings, because I know it can be sort of hard to envision, at least on the design side of things. A lot of times we're sort of working through what we want sort of out of the building as a whole, and then going through specific pieces of it. People will sort of break out and do their own work, and then we come back together and sort of discuss. That's sort of how our meetings have been going. I think it's pretty similar for the engineering teams. So there is sort of some part of it that you're doing on your own, but then you're always coming back and discussing things, designing things, sort of like annotating, drawing things out together. So we really are trying to make it as collaborative as possible, even though it's not an ideal situation, of course. So I can also take the next question, which is, what are the time commitments for the projects like? So, I mean, it is like a fairly significant time commitment, I would say. It does depend sort of week to week, though. For Solar Decathlon, since it is part of a competition, we have certain deliverables that we have to send to the competition committee every so often. So if a deadline is approaching, we are just going to be a little bit busier and might have to have like multiple meetings during the week to prepare for that. But usually it's just one meeting a week, and you have an hour to an hour and a half during that time that you're working, and then you will likely be assigned something to do for the following meeting, which probably won't be too intense, but again, it's just sort of dependent on where we are in the design process.
Yeah, so also the general meetings are required, so you do get one unexcused absence per semester, and we are going to be flexible with people, like as long as you tell us that you can't make it for, like, if you have a prior commitment or anything, that's completely fine. But it's just, you have to tell us that you won't be able to make it, because I mean we do need people to show up and know what's going on, so the projects will be very successful. So yeah.
Yeah, just to emphasize the level of commitment as well, attendance is mandatory, but because our projects are not going to be in the construction period for at least a few months, you're not going to be inundated with much work. So it will be steady.
On your application, you should be able to indicate that you want to be in both a project, like both a project and a committee, or just a project, just a committee. And if there's any other like circumstances that you want to propose, just like write it in the general application or email us. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a period at the beginning where you can you don't have to be like 100% committed to one project. If you go to like 1 or 2 meetings and you just think the other one would be a better fit, just let us know and we can kind of figure that out. And then yeah, definitely if you want to commit like all your time to a bigger role in a committee, that's something we can just talk about if you previously said you would like to be a part of a project as well. And then as for skills, I think we've really been emphasizing that you don't need much background. None of us have built homes before. And so I'm a chemical engineer and have like know nothing about architecture, or even like the software we need to use for planning. So I've been like doing a lot of my own research and learning from people we talk to, learning from our other members. What we need is your passion and your dedication and willingness to spend the time to learn these skills that you might need.
Yeah, since these projects are like so complex and involve so many variables, like it's possible to like be completely prepared to take on the entire project, and that's why we're part of the team. Like I personally have been able to, like Garrett said, when in my personal research, just like expand my horizons a lot. And I study computer science, so I don't like have any hands-on like building experience with any of this or architecture or like urban planning or any of that. But I've learned just a ton, and just like Garrett said, just being passionate, being curious. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, just specifically to address the design team. So I had the architectural design team for Solar Decathlon. I am an architecture major. But yeah, there's nothing that we are specifically looking for in terms of like, if you're referring to like certain types of programs or software that you need to know. Obviously, like it's nice to have that, but we're really just looking for your ability to be creative and contribute ideas. And there will be other people to take on that work if you're not as familiar with it. Like we have people that know Rhino, SketchUp, like all those sorts of things. And it's perfectly fine if you don't know that yet. If you're like a design major, you're going to learn that eventually. You can learn it from other members of SHAC if you're curious about that, or you can just like stick to doing hand drawings, whatever works really.
Yeah, and we do plan on having like several workshops, and the topics of the workshops will be up to us, and like we'll probably vote on it sometime, and like to see what kinds of skills that people want to learn. So we'll bring in like our faculty advisors, or maybe some people from our sponsorships that will be able to teach us about some particular tools. So, yeah. it's just all learning experience pretty much.
Okay, do you want to go to the next one? Is there a limit capacity for committees, or are we free to join any that we're interested in? You are free to join anything that you would like to join. So yeah, just, I'm not sure if this person has filled out their application yet, but yeah, just put whatever you're interested in on there. As we mentioned before, we are flexible, so literally just talk to us about what you're interested in and what you want to do, and we'll figure it out.
I would like to add that if everyone's interested in one committee, probably have to ask people to move around, and that's why we're asking your top, like, to rank it. So yeah, but we hope that's not a problem, and if it is, we'll be transparent about the placement process. But yeah, you can move around and stuff. It's not really set in stone for the committees at least.
Yeah, and not just within the committees, but in the projects also. We do want everyone to like have a specific role and like have be responsible for things. So we have a slide about like what the committees are about. Each of the like under the sub bullet points were pretty much like officer roles, and we do want everyone as much as possible to have like a title and a position, so that like you feel welcomed and all that, and also that all the committees like function properly. Like we can't just have everyone in internal affairs, like for example, focus on finance. We need everyone. We need people doing recruitment, doing event coordination, and all that. So yeah.
Also, if you've already filled out your application and you're now in the info session, like, oh my gosh, I want to apply for, or at least know that I want to be interested in multiple projects or multiple committees, it's not a problem. Just note it in your interview. And then the last question we have in the chat is what kind of work is supposed to be done by students and what kind of work is supposed to be done by outside companies. So I assume you mean in the context of construction. One of the really cool things about SHAC for either project is that not only will you apply a lot of the skills that you learn in class, but you will be kind of shadowing professionals in that process as well. Whether that is through like faculty advising or from the help of outside companies like construction, the amount of work done by either party, either us or another company, probably will be determined project by project and problem by problem. For example, like building the frame of the house versus installing solar panels, it's going to be different. So I hope that fully answers your question, and I don't know if anyone would like to add to that.
Yeah, I can add a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or Garrett, if you want to go ahead.
I was just going to say for THIMBY specifically, I think what we've expressed with some of the people we've been in touch with in the past is that we really want this to also be a learning process. It's a little bit easier for THIMBY because it's smaller, but we hope that if we do have professionals building parts of the house, that we will also be there learning from them, doing parts of it ourselves, so that, you know, if our current team also gets to build another one within the year, that will have a little bit more of an ability to do that on our own.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, there's not like a super concrete, clear-cut answer to this. It's kind of a good thing that's like it's really flexible, because there are so many parts of the project and we can't like focus on them all like super hard, because for example, like we're not going to be designing our own solar panels. A lot of the things we can get commercially, and the thing like for the Solar Decathlon, I think a lot of the engineering team is really interested in like building control, like demand response. So we are going to be trying to do like as much of that work as possible, like on our own, by like developing our own programs and control. But like we could just get those like off the market, just commercially, and that pretty much applies to any aspect of the project. Like it depends on whoever joins. Like you have like a say in what areas of the building you want to focus on. Like if we, for example, if we get a lot of materials people who are really into like the structural aspect of it, we could try to see if we could like design our own like structure, or like do some 3D printing or something. But like everything's pretty much available on the market, so anything that we don't want to like spend too much time on, we can just get from sponsors.
A good example of something that we'll definitely be doing on our own, and that can kind of be done in any state, at least THIMBY, is recycling shower. It's actually, surprisingly, it's not really commercially available. Well, we still need to determine sort of the legality behind it all, but that's something that we definitely have hands on, like laser cutting the acrylic parts and, sort of brazing the fittings and whatnot. So, yeah, that would be a bit down the road, but that's something that we would definitely be doing ourselves because we can't really do that with our specifications from anyone else.
Yeah, that's all the questions from the chat, but you're definitely welcome to speak up, and if we did answer your question completely, just let us know, or if you have any other ones. But most of the information that we've talked about should be able to be found on our website, and that should be the main point of contact for pretty much everything that we do. We do try to keep it as up to date as possible about what we're currently working on and all that, and like the structure of the clubs. And right now, I don't think we have the like club structure and like meeting schedule on there yet, but I think that's a good idea to put up there so that you guys can see. And obviously, I just said in the chat, we have an email, so it's info@shac.berkeley.edu. So if you come up with any questions that you can think of now, feel free to just email us. And there's a form on the website also that you can go through. But yeah, I'm excited to see all your applications. Anything else from anyone?
If there aren't any more, sorry, Garrett.
I don't have anything to say.
Oh, I was going to say, if there aren't any more questions, then you're more than welcome to go on with your Monday night. Happy Labor Day to everyone. But yeah, again, feel free to email us or even DM us on Instagram at CalShac. So, yeah. Or stay after if you'd like to talk to us more personally.
Yeah, we'll stop recording at that point. Yeah.
All right, thanks everyone. Oh, sorry.
No, to plug on the stage if you want to do this, but we're gonna have a seminar series that is a collaboration between multiple clubs. So just keep an eye out. You'll be receiving our newsletter if you indicated that you were interested in that. So yeah, feel free to attend that.
Yeah, just a note on that too. It's general sustainability stuff. So even if you don't end up joining SHAC or are in a different club or just interested in sustainability, you can definitely come, and there will be a lot of really interesting topics.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop recording. Thank you for those that watched the whole thing online.